It's the first Sunday of Advent. Therefore, we hear the doom. We hear the apocalyptic. We hear about those things that will come upon us that will destroy the world. It sounds like talk radio, doesn't it? I mean, you turn it on and pretty soon you're sitting there shaking in fear and foreboding. Well, the days are surely coming, says Jeremiah, not when things will get bad, but when God will fulfill the promises. So what is it? How are we to take on this thing called Advent? How are we to decide what is helpful? What is the good news for us? Well, of course, we're not real sure when Advent started, but it's been approximately 20,018 years, therefore pretty close to that many Advents that we've been going through since that first big event. We know the story. We know the story of Jesus. We know the story of what happened. We know the story of the resurrection. And we know we've been waiting. Heaven and earth will pass away, says our reading today. And the truth is, we're waiting. Not yet, I guess. A lot of us, a lot of modern people, frustrated with being on hold. You ever had that sore ear from holding the telephone there? They've just hung up. Their lives are enough. They don't need to worry about Advent and the apocalyptic end of our world. That doesn't mean they aren't faithful. It just means that their lives feel more pertinent and more important than thinking about something called the second coming. So here we are again. I'm the preacher going on about Advent and the second coming. You're listening. Some of you have been listening for 70 years, maybe even 80. Pastors have been saying the second coming is coming. But not now. So what has this to do with our lives? Well, as all preachers who ask a rhetorical question, I say, I am glad you ask, so that I can go on. I would suggest that our reading becomes interesting, not as a prediction for us, though it may be, we don't know, but rather as a story about preparing our lives as an offering to God. Luke, and like Luke, we know that our lives are going to be challenged. We may not look to the sun or the moon or the stars for signs, but we certainly know about rising sea levels and distress among the nations. We know about fear and foreboding, which are the menu of our nightly news programs and broadcasts. We also know that human hearts are fragile and that dissipation, depression, drunkenness, addiction, despair can weigh so heavily on us that we can't see beyond our very selves. So yes, all of us here know life can be challenging. Now, the second coming may not seem very real, not after 20,018 years, but it is a reminder, perhaps a metaphor, for our faith's assertion that God has promised. God has promised not to abandon us. The days are surely coming when I will fulfill the promise I have made. The meaning of Advent, the gift of Advent, may be like the ritual of communion. It offers us an opportunity to take a few moments to focus on our faith and to once again claim those promises of God and our relationship with Jesus as the basis for our discipleship, as the basis for how we live our lives. We can hope. We are not abandoned. And this being the case, this Advent might well be the time when taking a little time, being a little intentional about reflecting on our values and our commitments, reflecting on how we serve others, reflecting on how we share our gifts and pass them along, might actually be advantageous to us. Advent is not just about preparing for a single day, even if it is Jesus' birthday. Advent is about hope, a hope that allows us to trust in God's promises, love, and renewal. And we are invited to prepare, to be ready, to stand up, to raise up your heads, for the Son of Man, our redemption, has drawn near and is drawing near. Thanks be to God. I invite you now to take a deep breath. God be with you.
And also with you.
May the peace of Christ dwell in your hearts.
Christ